Every day, every moment is a choice.
On the next Intentional Living with Courtney Myers.
What Spirit has taught me is we always have the power to choose if we align with light and love or fear and shadow. That's our choice.
Rebecca Rosen, international spiritual medium and best-selling author, shares her wisdom from beyond.
If you can hold your light, you hold the power to set the tone for the frequency, the energy of the entire space you're in. And that is powerful.
And she reveals the secret to a more heavenly way of being.
Heaven or hell is not a place. It's a state of mind. It's a feeling. It's so simple. It's come from your heart. And that's how we become the light.
Don't miss this powerful episode. Intentional Living with Courtney Myers. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Myers, a podcast dedicated to those seeking a more fulfilled and purposeful life through thought-provoking conversation, spiritual exploration, and authentic connections. The intentional movement has begun, and if you found yourself here, you are a part of it. Intentional Living with Courtney Myers starts now. Hi, Rebecca. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Myers. I am so honored to have you here today.
Oh, I'm so excited you wanted to have this conversation.
Well, I think we're going to have a big conversation. Like we were just kind of like debriefing before we jumped on. I have some big topics I want to talk to you about. And I know you talk a lot about mediumship and connecting with like loved ones that passed, but I think there's actually a bigger discussion sometimes to be had there because we talk on this podcast a lot about connecting to ourselves and connecting to who we are inside. And that's coming back to our spirit and our soul and that inner light that we all have within. But I think in order to do that, we also have to believe there's something bigger out there, that there's something bigger than us. There's something more. And I think there's a missing link kind of in society as a whole with that. And you're here. I mean, one of your biggest things that you do is help connect us to that other side as a medium. So, I mean, how do we start to understand that there is something more?
Yes. Well, I love that you're starting with this because this essentially like is the core of what everything comes down to. And that is that oneness or unity consciousness. It's divine spirit. And at the end of the day, we are all connected through that divine spark inside of us. Okay. And so what I get to do and what I love to do is show people that our souls are energy, right? It's that divine spark that we all have, that God, goddess energy inside of us. And energy doesn't die. It just changes form. And so what I get to do in mediumship is connect with the divine sparks that were once embodied in a physical form or humans in a lifetime. And we've all had many lifetimes. You know, that's the whole basis of reincarnation. And so whether you're embodied or you're discarnate, you are that soul. That is the eternal nature of who you are. And that's, again, what connects us all. And what I believe God is an energy of love. Okay. So people call it all sorts of things. You know, we can call it anything. You can call it source, universe, divine spirit, supreme being, mother, father, God. But it's love at the end of the day. And right. And so that is essentially like when we're in our higher selves, that's how we can all connect to each other on that same wavelength of that. And that's where unity consciousness comes in, right? Because right now, I mean, we can all feel it. We're in a 3D earthly existence, and 3D energy of this earth plane is filled with the opposite of unity consciousness. It's separation, segregation, it's duality, polarity, contrast. And so in this realm, it feels very foreign to our innate eternal self, that soul, right? And so when I connect with spirits on the other side, they're in the 5D energies, at least the ones I connect to. You know, there's all different levels in planes of existence, but I only work with those in the 5D heavenly realm. And they're seeing us unsettled and sometimes forgetting who we are really, which is divine sparks of light, we're soul, and where we come from and why we're here. And so they are coming through to comfort us and to reassure us we're not alone. We're all connected not only to that source energy, but we're connected to our team spirit. which is
I
all
love
your
that.
angels and guides, departed loved ones who are there. They're there to assist you. So that's an overall of what I'm doing.
But I mean, you said so many big things there, the remembering, the love. I mean, I think I'm curious when you're talking about this, because I've actually had two really big conversations this week about the remembering and the oneness and the separation and the duality and all that stuff. And as when we're here, we want to keep that separateness because then we don't exist in this form. So we have this problem of coming back to one, and that we keep coming back here to be separate, and we don't necessarily become one until we're done having that individual experience. That was one thing that came to mind when you were talking about. And then I had another discussion, which we can get into both of these topics, just about love, like how like there's so much like dislike for our own selves. We're so self-critical and things like that. And I'm wondering, when you were talking, are we in a foreign place? Like we don't know how to accept that love here? Like, is that where that disconnect comes in? Because we are living in a world of such duality where that love isn't as present, that's that why we struggle to love ourselves and find that unconditional love from one another?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, there's like 50 places we could go with it. I love
No, these
it.
are two big questions. I know, right?
Yeah, but you're speaking my language. I love it. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is the levels of consciousness. We are all vibrating at different levels of consciousness. In the book I just
Yeah.
wrote, What's Your Heaven, I included Dr. David Hawkins. He created this scale of consciousness, and it's
Mm-hmm.
based on your emotions. And at the bottom of the totem pole are all the fear-based emotions. And at the top, and then there's in the middle is neutrality, and above that goes all the way to the top, which is love. So at the end of
Yeah.
the day, there's really only two emotions. It's love or fear. And so when you're not in a place of unity, oneness, connected to your 5D self, that higher self part of you, you can slip into the ego, which goes to your first question. Ego is edging God out. I remember Wayne
Mm.
Dyer once saying that, and it always stuck with me because, yeah, we are here to have the human experience, an individual experience, but there's a new 5D way of doing things. We don't have to just come into this world of contrast to learn through contrast and opposites and
Mm.
separation. We can, if we choose to plug into the 5D energies of love, of unity consciousness, we can learn our life lessons with grace, ease, joy, connection, oneness, and not so much pain and suffering and struggle. That's the old earth. And I think what's going on is more and more people, their levels of consciousness are waking up. They're evolving.
Mm-hmm.
The energy on the planet is literally changing. Scientists have
Yeah.
measured it. And there's more light on the planet, which means there's more opportunity for us to download these light codes, to awaken to that soul memory or knowing that's innate within us, and to then embody it. But we have to do the
Mm.
work. So many people are walking around unconscious. And when you're
Yeah.
unconscious, you go on autopilot, you go into default. And that's where our shadows start. We start shadow dancing, right? Our
Mm-hmm.
shadow, our unhealed parts or frightened parts of our personalities, the childhood wounds, the past life wounds, the baggage, the intergenerational patterns and programming passed down from our ancestors. That's where we start acting those out. And
Mm.
the whole goal of our soul is to heal and balance karma, whether it's our own or ancestral. And so what's happening on the planet, there's so much suffering and so much pain and darkness. So we can acknowledge it and we can choose
Mm-hmm.
to align with it, or we can choose to align with the light and make choices
Mm.
from the frequency of light and raise our consciousness. And that's how we become the light. And that's how you
Mm.
hear light workers, star seeds, all these
Yeah.
enlightened, I also call them earth angels, people on the planet here to raise the consciousness of the planet back to a higher place of love. And so anyone listening to this is probably one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
You're one of those people. Like, if you feel
Yeah.
a need to educate people or to talk about these spiritual truths, there's a part of your soul waking up saying that we're
Mm.
needed, because look at, all the devastation and destruction that's going on.
So do you think this devastation and destruction and all this fear-based rhetoric that we deal with on a daily basis is part of the fight to keep this dimensional like the different dimensions, like to keep us in that 3D? Or do you, almost like I've heard it likened to like when, a butterfly breaks out of its cocoon, there's a lot of ugliness. There's a lot of, it's not real pretty. Even like think of childbirth. It's like
Yeah.
when something is born, something new and beautiful,
Yeah.
like it's not real pretty. So, is that kind
I
of what's
know.
going on? Is it like a fight to like hold on to like this old earth? Or do you think it's just kind of like we're shedding light on it? I don't know.
It's both. What's happening is I love that you use the butterfly metamorphosis because I just went through it personally and we're going through it,
Mm-hmm.
universally. And it's not pretty, but it's worth it. And that's how we grow and evolve. And again, that's the whole point of our souls here to heal and balance karma, to grow and evolve as souls in Earth School. So what I believe is happening is that this is inevitable. It's just part of the process. And you can either choose to align again with that old earth, the war, the 3D
Yeah.
again separation energy, or you can choose not to be naive. And I'm not about spiritual bypass. You can't love and light this away, right? You
Yeah.
got to be real about it. You got to feel what you're feeling, which all of us, myself included, are feeling all the messy, ugly feelings that go along with the
Mm-hmm.
heartbreak and pain of watching everything and personally experiencing it. But then you can choose it's like all about changing your perception. Okay, this is not happening to me. I'm not a victim. This is happening for me. Okay, whether it's again individual or collective, for my growth and evolution. And that puts you in an empowered place to come out of victim, go into victor, empowerment, and then figure out how do we raise this consciousness of the situation or of the planet as a whole. And we each have our own special, unique contribution.
Mm-hmm.
And, some are small, some are big. It's all equally important. And so, for me, okay, let me give you an example. When the war broke out a few weeks back between,
Yeah.
Palestine and Israel and all that, I was glued to the television. My heart went out. Like I'm such an empath. And I was watching it nonstop. Okay. And it was starting to dim my light. And I was anxious. I'm not an anxious person. And I knew better. Like there's enough to educate yourself to stay informed, right? So you're not naive, you know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's such a thing as too much that you get sucked into the drama. I started to move from 5D. I slipped into 3D. I went into all the fear-based emotions. And then I had an energy healer work on me. And she said, "Are you watching a lot of the news?" And I said, "How'd you know?" She goes, "It's all over your energy field. Your vitality isn't there. Your connection isn't as clear." And she was right. And so I had to limit myself. I had to turn it off, just get like headlines.
Yeah.
And then I would go into, instead of turning on CNN, I would go into prayer and I'd pray for all these people suffering and the planet as a whole and
Mm-hmm.
show me how I can be of service. What can I do? And so again, it's in front of us. Our job is to kind of step back and be neutral, but not be to try and stay objective so that you don't get caught up in the drama. Because in that, you're of no good to anybody, right? You
Yeah.
lose your grounding, you lose your connection to your higher self. And so to then come from that place of neutrality, and that's, even doing the work I do. I can't go
Yeah.
into a day of readings bringing my own personal drama. I would
Mm-hmm.
contaminate the people's messages. I have to be a pure channel, be neutral, get to a space where I get my ego out of the way and I just become a pure channel, for source and spirit. So we can see it
I,
both, individually and collectively.
but I love how you said that, we have, we would be amiss if we weren't informed of what was going on in the world. And I used to be that person that was like watching the news 24 hours a day. And maybe this is where some of the disconnection comes in the world as a whole, because we have so much easy access to it. It's coming through our feeds. It's coming through our televisions. It's coming through our satellite radios. Like we're in the car. We're looking for these outside sources of like knowing. We just want to take in all this information. but I found that it puts me into that negative space. And what it does also is it makes us more almost like an observer and less of, coming out and do what can I do? And so when you remove that energy, which, I stop watching the news 24 hours a day. I
Mhm.
only, I read the headlines, I read the feeds. Every once in a while I dive a little deeper because I do like to be informed. I mean, I'm a journalism major. I went to journalism school. I'm a writer. I've
Yeah.
worked in television. Like, I want to be informed what's going on in the world. I want to be informed from like every channel so I can really make my own opinion up. But I love that you said it's like you went down into prayer to like, what can I do to help? And that's what I feel like is the biggest thing. And I've had this conversation with a holistic psychologist on the show that she brought up this fact that
Mhm.
just one person, one light worker, their prayer or their good thoughts or their work in the world is like exponentially greater than all that negative emotion. So when you think you're just one person, how can I make a change? You actually are. Your energy is raising everyone else's at such an exponential level that it makes up for all the people stuck in that 3D fear-based consciousness.
Exactly. I mean, that's why the power of prayer of two or more, you combine all these light workers around the planet, coming together in prayer. It can raise the consciousness of all those who are disconnected. And I've heard the same fact. And, sometimes I think we say, well, why me? Or how could I make a difference? But
Yeah.
when you're in alignment, right, with source or light, you're holding a frequency, and that frequency is magnetic and it can be felt. And so, I just did a podcast. We were talking about going into the holidays with family and friends who tend to trigger you.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking all about a mind, body, spirit way of how do you walk into a situation, whether on a very small scale, it's you're around people that trigger you or
Yeah.
uncomfortable situations, or on a large scale with the war on the planet. How do you hold your light? Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you can hold your light, you hold the power to set the tone for the frequency, the energy of the entire space you're in. And that is powerful because then you can be a lighthouse to feed the people around you and raise their consciousness, raise their energy so that we can experience love and peace, and not so
Mm.
much, the frequencies of judgment, competition, greed, fear, anger, hatred, all that. That's very real. And so I think what's going on is back to this, like you can plug into, if you acknowledge what is, yeah, it's going to trigger a part of your personality or your ego, and it's going to bring you into fear. But
Yeah.
that's what the dark beings on the planet want. Then they win. So instead, you say, cancel, not going there, don't speak that language. I'm not playing that game. I'm in agreement with light and love, source energy. I work for light. That's all. You call your energy back from
Mm.
the situation, from the person, whatever it is, you call your energy back. Because Spirit has taught me is we always have the power to choose if we align with light and love or fear and shadow. That's our choice. And the minute you wake up and you recognize, wait, I'm slipping into fear or ego or shadow, that's all it takes. Then you have the power to call it back and to get plugged into source again. So, and I would just put this out there, an energy healer I work with taught me, and it's helped me so much the last couple of years with all the stuff we've gone through, is that when I catch myself, just start doing a mantra over and over and over, whatever that mantra is. What I was taught is the divinity within me. And I just say it over and over, the divinity within me, because that is calling my light and my power back to that divine spark that is within me, that is me.
So you can switch it on that quickly.
Yeah, you absolutely can. So, and even in readings, like I,
Mm.
again, only work with light. And so if I somehow feel like I got triggered in a reading and I get disconnected and I start to feel something less than light and love, I can
Mm-hmm.
just come back to, wait, nope, time out. Intention is everything. This is what I learned a long time ago, and it's so powerful. Energy follows intention. So as long, you don't even have to know what you're doing, as long as your
Mm.
intention is pure, right? I have pretty
Yeah.
much taught myself how to do mediumship. I had a few teachers, great teachers along the way. But at the end of the day, I would say my teachers have been my guides, my team in spirit.
Mm.
And, it's always about coming back to intention. And from there, energy follows intention. And spirit, in a sense, will lead you along the highest timeline or high path that's for highest and best for you and for all involved.
So how do you bring that energy, like just talking about, going into a room of people that you're connected with, you're going to feel the energy a lot more than just strangers usually. Not always, but you're more empathic to it.
Right.
How do you keep that energy strong? Because, the frequencies can be off. We can be butting heads. Like holding that light to raise it, it can be triggering for someone that's not on that frequency for you. Like, how do you remain higher? Because I feel like it's a lot easier sometimes to be like,
Mhm.
find yourself going down than to raise people up. It's a lot easier to go down the mountain than climb up it.
Yeah, that's right. Something I learned to do is rather than just protect myself walking into it, I have learned you want to dominate the energy or vibration in the room. So you project yourself. So what you
Mm,
do is, and you can line this up, meditate on it before you walk into the room or the situation, or you can do it there and you can do both. But what you do is you
yeah.
breathe down into the core of your being, into your solar plexus. You really get ground. That's your point of power and will and confidence.
Mm,
Okay. And you breathe. And I imagine drawing down from source energy gold light, because gold
mm,
vibrates at the frequency of divine truth and all love. And you imagine a golden sun from your being radiating out, just
mhm.
beaming light. It's like love bombing and light bombing everybody. And you really cast it out, because then if you can't send and receive energy at the same time. So if you're sending, that protects
Mm,
you, because light always conquers darkness. Okay. And when I say darkness, I mean sometimes people are good people, but they're in judgment, right? They're
yeah.
sitting there mentally judging you. You're right,
Hmm.
wrong, good, bad, positive, negative, whatever it is. And as an empath, you can really feel that.
Hmm.
And it doesn't always feel good. And and so you want, and sometimes it's competition. People are trying to one up you. That's just part of the ego. And so
Yeah.
instead of us judging them, like, you don't want to be brought down into judgment. Instead, you want to find compassion and forgiveness. Like that's okay. I get it. They're in their unconscious self, right? I'm not going to take this personally. So if I start to feel, because I am super sensitive and it is hard for me to be in like big dominating energy, like crowds and
Yes.
especially
Yeah.
negative ones. But I have learned I have to be, I'm a spiritual being having this human experience. I've had to learn how to
Hmm.
function, to show up, to live a normal life. And so that's what I do. I go into
Mm.
projecting light and love. And it does seem to help, but there's so many spiritual tools. If that doesn't resonate with your listeners, there's so many more that you can use, but that's one example.
I'm almost imagining it as you're describing it like a Care Bear, like the Care Bear shutting their like light out of their little belly. It's just like love, love, love. And it sounds silly, but like it helps. Those visualizations do help. But yeah,
And
I
what?
mean, going into groups, it's hard.
Mhm.
It's hard to like manage your energy, especially when you're coming up against, like you said, there's that judgment. But like, it's even hard, I think, to come at things with that compassion and understanding without being almost judgmental too. Cause there's can be a judgment about that. Like,
Right.
oh, I get it. I get that you're there, like you're not on this level as me. Like we have to find a way to balance that where we can come at it with like pure compassion, pure love. Like what is
Yeah.
that genuine energy? And that's something I've said before is energy doesn't lie. We can't just say, oh, I feel you or I'm compassionate. We actually have to embody that. So how do we embody that true nature of that love and compassion?
Well, that takes practice. I mean, that ultimately, we're all on this journey working to embody.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the sign of a fully self actualized being. And, that might
Mm-hmm.
take lifetimes, but as long as, spirit doesn't judge us on where we're at, it's our intention to show up to do and be our best self each day. And that's, where I was 10 years ago. I didn't
Yeah.
have the wisdom I have today. And so you have to have compassion. And so, really, it's about being accountable. Like I
Mm-hmm.
notice when I go into judgment, I'm like, wait, time out. Who am I to judge?
Yeah.
Cancel, cancel. So it's a practice. And then coming back to, okay, I wish to see through the lens of love. Spirit, show me this person or show me the situation through divine eyes. Okay. Rather than through the lens of fear, which is again, judgment and all the other things. So it's really, it's like becomes a habit. And the more you catch
Mm-hmm.
yourself, the more you correct it. And to embody it is truly it's to live it. You know, affirmations in the book I just read, I talk about a process. I have this process that's called change it, run it, tap it, because affirmations are great for sure,
Yeah.
but when you're trying to correct, false beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
but affirmations alone don't work because
Mm-mm.
you have to integrate it, right? On a
Mm-hmm.
mind, body, spirit level. And so I talk about the power of tapping, emotional freedom technique to help to, change your nervous system and to really integrate that. I have a practice where it's called running energy. And running energy is truly just working with the frequency, like of colors, different colors. Like when I go into judgment, I start running royal blue, deprogramming blue. I just imagine a waterfall of blue flooding through me because that deprograms my judgment and my mind, my fear based mind thoughts. So
Yeah.
there's different tools you can use. But again, you got to walk your talk. And, it's easier said than done.
Yeah. I mean, I literally had this conversation this morning about affirmations. Like, affirmations are great and it's a great starting point, but you have to put that action behind it. That's how we rewire our mind. That's how we work. And that's how I think I love these spiritual tools about it, because we were talking more on like a, you know, 3D version of it versus like bringing in the light and things like that. Like, these visualizations and these techniques, they all work together to help us rework our system. And we do need to get out of our head more, because we're so much in our head. We logic our way out of so much. And I think when we can open ourselves up to our imagination, like bringing in colors or the little Care Bear or whatever that is, that opens us up to magic and miracles and possibilities. And I think if we can go more about the world in that way, we can live a little bit more of that love.
Exactly. I just got out of a group reading and we were talking all about bringing heaven to earth and how, yeah, what's going on the planet is very real, but you don't have to live in a living hell. Heaven or hell is not a place, it's a state of mind, it's a state
Mm,
of being, it's a feeling, is what it is. So the heavenly feelings are everything we've been saying. It's getting into a place of magical thinking and joy. It's that right brain side of us, creativity, imagination. So many kids they get it. They're our teachers
yeah.
because that's where they come from until over time it's talked out of them. And,
Mm-hmm.
our job is to nurture that because they are here like these little angels showing us what it looks like to be present in the moment, operating
Yeah.
from their heart, not living in the past or the future in their brains, overanalyzing, overthinking, creating the false beliefs and stories, the delusion, right? That we end up and then getting into. And that then dictates our heaven or our hell. So, it really is, you've said it. It's so simple. It's come
Yeah.
from your heart. Spirit always says balance intellect and intuition, head and heart. They're both important. Our ego is important when used properly, but not when we become a slave to it or a slave to our mind. So and spirit does also always say your feelings are your guidance. Feelings don't lie. It's like
Yes.
energy doesn't lie. Feelings are your truth. So when you're trying to get a read on someone or something, you want to drop out of your head, breathe into your heart, and say, feel into it. Like, how am I feeling about this? What is it bringing up for me? And really try and, you sit with that until you can make sense of what the feeling is.
But, so many of us have been told not to feel, we bypass those feelings. We medicate those feelings. That's why we drop into things like addiction or judgment or gossip and all these like lower level 3D things. But honestly, if you think about it, and I've talked about how our children are so connected as well. If you think about it, they don't do that. They're not trying to get out of that. So are our children actually coming in, living in the 5D, and then we pull them down into the 3D as they grow?
Many of them, not all of them,
Okay.
but so many. There's so many more enlightened, what I would call earth angels being born and have been born the past, 10, 15 years. These are
Mm-hmm.
the crystal children, the rainbow children, the way back. I think I'm part of the Indigo Children, but
Mm-hmm.
the Star Seeds, the Light Workers, there's all these names for it. But in the end, it's more evolved consciousness incarnating into bodies to help show us the way by example. So yes, I would totally agree with that. So many of these kids, just by being themselves, able to, like, yeah, if they have an issue, they express it. They get angry, they have a
Mm-hmm.
tantrum.
Yeah.
But then most are able to shake it off and move on and get to a joyous, peaceful place again. But so
Yeah.
many of us who have been trained, we go into harboring resentments, grievances, and that unforgiveness poisons us. And it
Mm.
brings us into these lower vibrations. And that's where the disease happens. That's where cancer happens. That's where heart
Mm.
attacks happen, right? Because that dis-ease, unhealed, not examined, poisons you over time, becomes disease.
Well, and that's where we come into these, issues that last so long, is that we're not treating them too. We're not treating the feelings. We're not treating the root causes. We're not treating like what is making us not at ease.
Right.
We are just medicating the symptoms as opposed to getting to the root of it all.
I know, because it's uncomfortable. I mean, who really wants to do the
Yeah.
work? We all want a magic pill. And as the saying goes, you
Yeah.
got to feel it to heal it. You got to feel it to heal it. Because if you don't, you're going to revisit this in the afterlife when you do your life review, or in another incarnation. And it's always harder and messier. Every time you bypass it and avoid it, it gets more complicated. And
Does
so
it?
oh yeah. So what Spirit says is, do your work now. Don't wait, because even you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get it perfect. We're not meant to. It's Earth School. We're here. It's messy. We're here to make mistakes. We learn through trial and error. But if our intention is to do our best and to keep learning and to try and heal and balance whatever that is we're working on, that's what matters. And so, I talked to so many spirits who died by suicide,
Mm.
and they were trying to escape because it was, life's too hard. And I get it. Life is hard, and they're not judged when they crossed over, but they are forced to take accountability of all their thoughts, words, and deeds. So you absolutely pick up where you left off. And so I just channeled one an hour ago, and this young boy who's saying, like, look, I regret it because I didn't
Really?
realize I'd be sitting here with the same circumstances and feelings and wrestling with it. But the bottom line is, the reason we don't do it is because it's uncomfortable, and who really wants to be uncomfortable? But if you reframe it and start looking at it as an opportunity, you know, try and find the silver lining or the gift, because truly life is a gift. There are so many souls, billions of souls, wishing they could get into a body. And
Mm.
there's limited amounts of bodies. And so if you're here listening to this, you're in a body, consider that a gift and consider yourself lucky. Each day, every day when I wake up, I'm like, thank you for another chance at life. Thank you for another day. Thank you for the gift of this day. Thank you for a day of heaven on earth. Help me learn my lessons and do my work with grace, ease, and joy. Show me next steps. If you start your day in prayer with that intention, with a grateful heart, then you're going to go through Earth School. You're going to have your responsibilities and your lessons and your challenges, but you reframe it and it becomes more magical. It becomes a lot easier and a lot more fun to do it.
When you're describing this, all I can think of is like holy, like eternal procrastination or spiritual procrastination, like just putting off these lessons because we're gonna, like, anything you procrastinate, you're gonna still have to deal with it at some point in time. So that's really interesting that if you cross over, if you choose to check out, that you're still sitting with that, and it's going to get worse.
So yes, and Spirit talks about, we're in Earth School. When you cross over, if you avoid doing your work, you're going to summer school on the other side.
Mm.
However, if you've done your work to the best of your ability, even though it's not perfect, you're going to go to summer vacation. The choice is
Mm.
yours. Okay. And so I'll talk to spirits all the time that are sitting in a school desk where other spirits are out on a beach playing.
Mm.
So you can't avoid it. And the reason we want to come into a body to do it here versus on the other side is because the environment in which your karma was created, it's always easier to heal, clear, and balance it in that space than doing it in the non-physical realm.
Okay.
Meaning if you lived a past life and you harmed somebody, you're going to want to reincarnate with them into an earth plane or some planet, a physical form again, to redo that, to do it differently, do it better, to heal and balance, because that's where the karma was created. So it's more
Mm,
efficient, it's more powerful versus trying to neutralize it and work it out in the spirit world.
mm. So
So,
when it comes to doing that, I mean, is that where our soul contracts come into play? Because I've wondered this and I believe in it 1,000%, but then I also question like, why the hell would I choose to come in and have that experience? Like, I understand there's a karmic thing, but like, let's go back to what's going on in the war. Why would I ever choose to be one of those children?
right. Because the soul remembers or knows what the human mind or consciousness forgets. And that is
Mm-hmm.
all of this is temporary. Energy doesn't die. Your soul is unharmed. If anything, you're a brave soul who said, I'm going to take one for the team. I'm going to go in there and be a part of that to serve as a teacher, and I'm going to, open up doorways of opportunities. You see all these tragedies, whether it's the war, or
Yeah.
school shooting, or a victim, in a murder. It's usually a very evolved soul who said,
Mm,
I know that by me doing this, it's either I'm taking one for the team because I don't have a lot of karma to heal and balance. I'm that evolved. So I'll do it in service to others to help them learn and grow from that in all sorts of ways.
mm,
Or they do have karma with it. They did kill people in a past incarnation in wars. And so now they need to be on the other side of this to experience it. And I know that sounds really harsh, but it's all about having compassion and empathy. And a lot of times, the way to do that is we learn through contrast or opposites. So
mm,
if you were the murderer in a past life and this lifetime you're the one being murdered, when you cross over and go to the other side and you review your soul contract with the people you had karma with, you're going to have authentic appreciation for both sides. Does that
mm.
make sense?
Yeah, but it's just now making me think like, why have we even created that dark space of death and murder? Like, why does that even exist? If we are one and
Mhm.
consciousness is eternal love, unconditional love, do we just need that duality to understand what love is? Or is there another reason? Because like, if we are coming in here all as a piece of God, source, whatever you want to call it, you would think that we would all come in with this loving experience. We would all
Right.
want to be love, right?
This takes us back to the personality, the ego, the individual
Mm,
self that unplugs from the collective self, the higher self, unity
mm,
consciousness, right? So it's free will. And some souls, stay plugged in and they are in a place of love and they aren't choosing from their shadow or lower self. But for most humans, if, a lot of the times, not all the time, we feel we're alone, we're separate because we're not plugged in. The book I wrote 7 lessons. And the first lesson is all about this. It's I am connected. And it's all
mm,
about, hey, the reason we suffer, the reason we have a living hell while we're on planet Earth is because we've separated from the consciousness of God. We've
mhm,
lost the connection or the remembering we are a divine spark and that we're all connected. So not only am I connected individually, I'm connected collectively. And so it's the ego and it's the free will. And that's just part of the process. But the more you evolve and grow, the less you need to reincarnate. And B, when you do incarnate, the less disconnected. It becomes more natural to stay in a place of love. And so that's the whole point. You know, on the planet, you can either slip into the hell, and for some, that's just going to be a living hell, or for others, it's going to mean death.
Mm.
Okay. Or you get up to speed with the raising frequency of the planet, which is moving into higher light codes, higher frequencies of light and love.
Mhm.
And that requires us to change our ways. And that means getting out of ego and plugging back in to higher self source energy and to each other on that wavelength of light.
So, with that in mind, do you think that we are moving back towards having more faith in our culture? Because that is one thing I have, since I've embarked on this journey, this podcast, I've really noticed some very interesting things in where this is being watched and the demographics. You're looking, from the business side of it, you're looking at all this and trying to figure out, like, where does this land? What is the audience? And I've seen this theme, and where this becomes extremely popular is in these topics are in the Western culture, places where we've gotten away from religion, or we have like vast different ideas of religion. And I don't think it's that we need, like, religion isn't like part of our life. It's not like a way of life, and it's not religion to me. It's more faith, believing, like we started believing in something bigger. But because we've gotten out of like this like church mentality, and I don't think that's actually the right place to be, because I think that's separate. There's so many different ways to look at church. It's more of like that greater purpose is missing in the Western culture. And now people are seeking it and becoming more aware of it. But is that why we are more disconnected? Because it doesn't seem to be as big of a thing in places like India, or where,
Right.
where these things are more of a way of life. Even like
Yeah.
in Italy or something, where that community and faith is more of like a way of life.
Oh, it's a great point. I mean, unfortunately, religion has the tendency to separate and segregate, and it's control, and
Yeah.
it's projecting, truths onto people that may not be right, may not resonate, may not be their truth. What Spirit says all the time, it doesn't matter how you find faith, just that you do in something bigger. It could be a spiritual
Mm.
path, it could be a religious path, but for me, that's why I do my readings. I provide authentic faith by giving people undeniable validations, things nobody could know. So they walk away believing in the fact they're not alone, that the soul is eternal, their loved ones are still with them. There is a God, whatever you call that to be, an energy of love, and that to plug into it. And so
Yeah.
when we go through what we're going through on the planet, when you go through hard times, you can either lose faith altogether or you can deepen your faith.
Mm.
And the whole point to go through challenging times is to bring you to your knees, to connect to something bigger, to deepen your faith and trust. And then when you do that, all of a sudden, the universe gives you reasons to believe. You get crazy,
Yes.
amazing miracles and synchronicities and signs. And that over and over and over creates the belief and then the knowing that this is real. There is something bigger, and that all you have to do is attune to it. And then that becomes your heaven on earth.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I love everything you just said, because I have said that before. It doesn't matter what you call it, just as long as you call on it. Like, it doesn't matter when you distill down all the messaging from all the different, religions out there. It's all coming back to the same place. It's all the same. And I think that brings us back to that oneness concept. I feel like we can just see each other, that we are all the same. But I'm curious, as we're talking about this 5D and 3D and this belief that we need to have, can we live in a 5D world when we're existing on a 3D plane?
Yes, you can. And that's what a lot of us are starting to figure out. There's a lot of wobble in that. I know for myself,
Mm-hmm.
like I'll slip between the two, but it's really coming back to your being conscious, being present, consciously choosing moment by moment. Am I going to show up and choose from the frequency of light or the
Mm-hmm.
frequency of shadow? Okay. Every day, every moment is a choice. And it's okay if you slip, just that you come back to plugging back into light. And by light, that's truth and whatever your truth is. But it's with that intention to be your best self, to be a source of kindness and compassion and light and love for yourself, first and foremost, and then paying it forward in service to others. And so, I witness every day struggle personally, collectively. And sometimes it depends. If I'm tired, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
just kind of worn down, I can easily fall into that shadow and go into anxiety, judgment, fear. But I usually catch myself pretty quick. And then I have to do some work sometimes. Maybe it's me take a time out. I have to go meditate. I have to go for a walk outside. Nature is easy. It clears you, it grounds you. Maybe it's, go take a nap to get like
Mm-hmm.
reset and neutralized. Everyone has a different way. Salt baths are great, but
Mm-hmm.
figure out what your way is so that you clear off the fear based stuff you're holding and come
Mm-hmm.
back to the higher vibrational stuff so that you can, experience heaven.
Yeah. I think where it gets confusing for a lot of people is, we think of 3D as like the materialistic world and we think of like 5D. Just I think it's more of like a common narrative out there. 5D is like where you're manifesting and where you're bringing in like your highest timeline and things like that. But it's more to me it's kind of like how do we balance the two to be a more to be reality,
Mhm.
to make our 5D our everyday reality, not that we're like in this manifestation state, but
Right.
we're also not in the muck.
Well, I think it's really simple. It's feel your feelings, and sometimes your feelings, your truth is you're feeling angry. You're
Yeah.
feeling, greedy. You're feeling all the lower hell-based, whatever we want to call them, feelings. You got
Yeah.
to feel it. You got to be real about it. But
Mhm.
process it. Process it. Work with it. Own it. Then when you lean into it versus resist it, because whatever you resist persists, right?
Mm.
And then it becomes
Mhm.
unconscious. So really sit with it. Why is this coming up for me? What is this here to teach me? Not why is this happening or why do I feel this way? Don't go into
Oh,
judgment of yourself. Just what is
mhm.
this? Get curious about it. And then process it, journal about it, talk it out, write it out, feel it out, whatever. And then it goes away. It dissolves. And
Mm.
that's how you live a very real, balanced life, in my opinion.
So we realize we notice it, we lean into it, and that allows us to work through it and release it essentially.
Exactly. Yes.
So what are the spirits on the other side watching us now saying about what's going on in the world?
There, I've channeled this so many times. There's heartbreak and devastation. They see it the same way we see it. Any healthy human sees it. But they also recognize that, it's kind of like the universe is working out the kinks of all the old energy, of all the division and the duality energy. So it's inevitable. This is just a natural, it's a growing pain as
Mhm.
the universe evolves and shifts to this higher frequency, it's going to stir up the darkness and all the weak links. And
Mhm.
so it's to try again and not get sucked up into it, get caught up in the drama,
Mhm.
but to again try and stay in an empowered, proactive state, not a reactive state.
Mm.
And then figure out how can I contribute to the healing of the planet and keep asking how you can do that. Sometimes it's little ways, sometimes it's simply holding energy, praying, meditating, sending that. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's donating money to a good cause that's supporting. Sometimes it's boots on the ground, doing something action oriented to help. Your guidance will tell you. But we all are here we're in it together.
Mhm.
And, and there's no reasoning with darkness and evil that exists on the planet. But we also don't need to give our power away to that. And so it's about pulling out of that, reclaiming our power, and coming back to plug into source or God or light, whatever you call it, and then operating from that place.
Does that darkness and evil live on the other side at all? Or is it just more like you're
So,
going to summer school and you're going to come back and like redo this a little bit?
oh, yeah, it does. Absolutely. There's for sure. And I don't work with those planes of existence.
Yeah.
There's a great movie with Robin Williams. I'm sure you've seen it, What Dreams May Come. And,
Mhm.
a lot of souls who are not in a good space, you go to the place you expect you're going to go to when you die. So
Mm.
if you have a lot of shame and, unconscious guilt and, you have a lot of evil acts in your karmic baggage, you're going to meet up with yourself when you cross over in a darker, lower vibrating place. We could call that a hell. Yes. But some people are in it here in this world.
Yeah.
So again, whether you're alive or dead, you're meeting up with your karma every day. And so, and I just want to remind people, this is not to scare anybody, because your intention is all that matters, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to be perfect. We all make mistakes. It's okay if you did something awful, but you've spent time contemplating it and healing it and balancing it. That's what matters. You're not going to go to a dark place because of that. We're human. We're meant to make mistakes. We're perfectly imperfect.
Well, like you said, we can learn our lesson here. Doesn't mean you have to learn it in a different lifetime. We can learn it in this lifetime. You can make the mistake and learn the lesson now and still continue to live, or you can learn the lesson on the other side.
Exactly. And it's great to learn it now, because you get out of the spin cycles you get stuck in, the unhealthy relationships you keep attracting, or the money that comes and goes and you end up bankrupt every time, no matter how much you make it back. All these patterns, negative patterns that we find ourselves. Why do I keep repeating this? Because you haven't learned the lesson. You haven't done the work. So your question is, okay, what is this here to teach me, and how do I break karma with it? How do I break agreements with this, whether it's mine or it was passed down to me? And you get to change it. And so if anyone's like, how? Read my book, What's Your Heaven? This is my whole book. And it's a roadmap. It really is. It's like, here, it's almost like a workbook. It's like, here's some great tools. And this can help you out of your living hell into creating your heaven on earth, because you don't need to wait to find ease and joy and grace. You can have it now. You really can. So I hope that's comforting and inspiring to people who hear this.
Well, yeah. I mean, just start to be aware of the patterns of your life, because that's going to show you where your lessons live. So how do we get that book?
Exactly.
How do we get all of your other books? How do we follow along with all you're doing? How do we get a reading and all that good stuff from you?
Yes. Okay. My website, RebeccaRosen.com. That has everything you need. But my book is available any major retailer. It's on Amazon, What's Your Heaven? And I have other books. I would just say Spirited is my first book. And that book really is for the beginner who's trying to understand, what is mediumship and how do I do this for myself? Because what I like to remind listeners is, you don't need me. You don't need anyone else. No one knows your truth more than you. You have all the wisdom inside of you, and you can connect to your intuition and your team spirit by yourself. You just need to learn how. And so that book would show them how. And then What's Your Heaven really is, okay, I'm ready for the next step. So it's homework.
I love it. Thank you, Rebecca, so much for today. I love having this discussion with you.
Oh, likewise. Thank you for having me.
And that's it for today's Intentional Living with Courtney Myers. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Rebecca Rosen, for joining me in such a beautiful discussion about connecting to the other side, remembering who we are, and truly embracing that oneness that unconditional love is. If you want to work with Rebecca or get her books, I'll put all the information in the show notes below. And as always, you can find Intentional Living with Courtney Myers and Intentional Media on our website at CourtneyMyers.com. That's where you'll find our books, our courses, and everything else we have going on. I can't wait to talk to you soon. Bye.